Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Stephanie, as you all know. If you're new here, welcome. If you are not, hello, longest time. So it's actually nice to be here with you guys. Today I'm having a couch talk. I decided to make a kind of contribution to a problem that has been rising up in my country, and it's lying below and nobody's seeing it, nobody's talking about it. I decided today that okay, I have this platform, so let's talk about it. It's been long, right? But today I decided that we are going to have this discussion because it's kind of something very close to my heart, and it's happening in my country, Nigeria. And it's like nobody's talking about it. It's just automatically becomes something that is normal, which isn't right. Somebody has to talk about it, and this is me giving really my own view on. So this issue is actually about the recently a medical house officer from Lutz, that's Lagos State Teaching Hospital, slummed and died. That's like at this point, I think that's like normal. They slum and they die. Why? Nobody asks why. Nobody actually investigates to know why are our doctors, young doctors, slumping and dying. Like that shouldn't be normal. And this one just happened, and I realized it didn't even make the headlines on the social medias because at this point, we're just kind of accepting that doctors should slum and die, house officers especially. So I decided to, this somebody is supposed to talk about it. So I'm throwing light on this issue because I believe that people in my country is becoming desensitized about the issue of house officers slumping and dying in their work post, or slumping and dying just out of their work post. And I don't think that that should be normal. And because MDCA is not taking accountability for these doctors under their watch, is making people think, oh, it's normal. So that is why a house officer just died this week and nobody is talking about it. Nobody, I just saw few people in Twitter talking about it. The whole social media is talking about literally another person, and nobody is actually throwing light in a doctor just died. What happened? Nobody's taking accountability of it. And so I think it's not fair that the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria is laying these doctors off to literally be choked up and forced to die. And then nobody takes accountability. And this is just like a series of events now making it okay for even the whole population to think like, oh, that's just normal. We've heard that kind of thing. They always die. They're not supposed to die. Somebody is supposed to be answered, be questioned, give accountability, and be responsible for the death of any trainee, because those doctors are there to be trained. They're not there to take over the job of everybody in that. Somebody is paid to be there. They are just there to assist. So why are they dying on the work post? Why are our doctors slumping and dying? So it's not right, and somebody should take accountability for that. And so I think the MDCN should be held responsible for these doctors. I know that some people will be like, in this video, will be like, oh, that's so harsh. You can't say they should be held accountable. They should be held responsible for the deaths of doctors. But why not? Why shouldn't they? Because I have my reasons. I know you all have your reasons to say they shouldn't, but I have my reasons to say they should. I believe that that 1 year is supposed to be a training year for these doctors. It's not supposed to be a burnt out year, or they're not supposed to come there to take the job of every, or the consultant job, the senior registrar's job, the junior registrar's job, the staff doctor's job. That's not what they're not there to do that. They're supposed to be there to train. They're supposed to be there to learn from these doctors of what they have spent 5 to 7 years in school learning. This is a practical year for them, and not a year for them to take responsibility of every doctor above them. So that's why I think the Medical and Dental Association of Council of Nigeria should take responsibility for this, because okay, you don't want to take responsibility, right? So what have you done? What have you put as a standard for training these doctors? Do you have a standard of how long they should be worked? Do you have a standard of the break they should have? Do you have a standard of the sick leave they should get? Let me take an example. Okay, because some of them are so worked up. How can somebody work for 72 hours, 3 days on a call? For those that doesn't know what call means like a 24 hours work. That's what is called a call in medical system. It's a call. So when you have a call, you have to stay there for 24 hours or working. So how can somebody have a 3 day straight call, 72 hours, and you expect the person to still function, to still have a good medical judgment on somebody's life? I don't think that is right. So what are you doing as the council, sending these students to their work post? What are you doing to stop this? Because I don't think anybody is doing anything to stop this. There is no limit to what they should work. Okay. And then there is no appropriate break for them. And then they get there and they become the front runners of everything that happens in the facility that they are sent to, instead of them to be kind of helpers and trainees. They become the doctors in seat, the doctors in charge of the facility. So what are you doing? Are you, what is the code of standard for this training they get during the housemanship year? Do you have one? If you have one, how do you implement that? This is what is actually happening. Because most of you would say, oh, we don't know this is happening in we don't even know this is happening. We don't know they've been working for 3 days. We don't know they work for 5 days straight without no break. Really? You don't know? Because it's not like a new thing. It's like a systemic thing. It happens literally round the clock, round the year. So it's kind of running within the system. So you wouldn't say that you don't know that you have a trainee stay there with no sleep for 4 days, working, sleeping on the bench, working, being on call for 4 days, and you expect the person to, survive. And then the problem here is that most of these council doctors will say like, oh, that's how it is. They would make an excuse that that's how it is. Is that how it should be? Are they supposed to? Is this supposed to be right that doctors that are on your care end up losing their life on the process of being trained? Is that normal? Some of them will say, oh, that's what it was on our city, we have done it. Why is it you've done it? Okay. I don't I'm not saying you haven't done it, but this is just like a father saying, oh, I suffered to make it, therefore my children must suffer. Everyone knows it's not like that. I suffered, I didn't have the opportunity my children had to make it. Now I've made it. My children, at least, I would make sure I give them that opportunity to excel. But for the doctors on the top, it's like, we did it, we had no problem with it, so why is it a problem for them to do the same thing we did? Changed, obviously. The you 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 did it when the let's use COVID as an example. These days we have a lot of variants of diseases. Those days you treated malaria, which was just malaria, with an early variant. So these days our diseases have mutated. Somebody just suffered malaria, and then there's so much underlying cause that makes the sickness worsen, and then these doctors still have to take care of them. So yeah, you did it, but now things have changed. So I think something should be kept in place for them to know what is the standard of working. For you to say you're not aware of doctors dying because they are burnt out, this is just like an example of what happened to the recent doctor from Lagos State Teaching Hospital that just died. As the news said, he was in pediatrics posting, and in the pediatric posting, and this I've heard from a lot of doctors. When it comes to pediatric posting, you have to do a 48 hours call, and within after this 48 hours call, mind you that you don't get a day off. You from 48, and unlucky you would be if you are the only doctor posted on that unit. So your 48 hours calls come routinely. You can have a 48 hours call today, and then tomorrow have a 16 hours, and then the next day have 14 hours, 24 hours. Just and then you expect somebody having all day, coming in all day to work and sleeping there and working 24 hours in the clock to not even get a day off, and you expect it to be normal. Because I know that it's not just he was in pediatrics posting. It's not, it's kind of a routine in other pediatric posting around the teaching hospitals in Nigeria, that you have to get, that their normal calls are 48 hours calls, which is wrong. Because that's just an evidence that he was already burned out of working. That's why he had to slump and died. And then I was asking, what about sick days? How do you get sick days? Don't you have avenues where you can, if you're not feeling good, you can just call and say that you're sick and then take that day off? Right? So he was telling me that, oh, you don't get a sick day, and if you want, you have to apply for the sick day. They have to make sure that you're very sick to grant you a sick day. So literally, in other words, you have to be in the state of death for you to get a sick day, which really doesn't make sense. How do I book for sick days when I'm not already sick? So I have to call the HR, the human resources, and tell them, oh, I want to book for sick day in the next 2 days. Why is it called a sick day if I don't take it the days I'm actually sick? So if somebody works for 48 hours, you should take a day off and recharge. I don't know, like it should be normal. That should be like common sense. You should take a day off and, recharge, so that you can even be good, you can be on the good state of mind to make a medical judgment on somebody's life. That's why people just go to hospital and then they die just from malaria, and they die because if the doctors are burned out, they are at risk of making a wrong medical judgment on people's case, leading to death ultimately. So I think that the way that they train the doctors should be looked into. Sick day should be looked into. A doctor that is sick to take a day off to get better. You don't book for sick days for the days that I'm going to be sick. I'm sick today. How can't I just book a sick day on the day I'm sick? I don't think it's fair for them to work consecutively for 3 months and then get a 1 week break. That's not good. The system is literally training them to be unsafe doctors. So if by the foundation of the training you already make them unsafe, that's why it's literally like Nigerian medical system is like the worst you could think about, because every sickness, a minor headache can lead to your corpse, can lead to you dying the next day as far as you're in the hospital, which is wrong by every means. Okay, let's go to X. And this doctor was giving, and he was actually giving a contribution about the death of this new doctor. I think he's not actually a medical doctor practicing in Nigeria, because the way his statement is showing that he's not actually practicing in Nigeria. So he said, like, Christ, some colleagues do calls for 3 consecutive months in addition to a routine unit work like rounds, clinics, meetings, and surgery. The solution of our health sector is privatization with health insurance for all. Nothing strive in the hands of Nigeria government, which is actually true, which is really actually true. And somebody made a comment like, being on call 3 months is suicidal mission, which is right. Definitely suicidal. Definitely an unsafe doctor, an unsafe physician. How do they survive? Okay, and this is his answer is actually what I think, that's how they survive. That's how what they turns out to be, unsafe doctors and insensitive doctors, because that's what they train them from the foundation to be, unsafe. So he answered that by building resistance to the toxicity, some turn out human and sympathetic, the rest become vengeful and insensitive, thereby propagating the vicious circle of insanity. This is just it. Like, I don't know, I think he threw so much light, because that's what they turn out to be. Very insensitive, very vicious. And these are supposed to be doctors. These are supposed to be people making medical judgments in our lives. And this is what they train them to be. So I think the MDCN should look into this, because for me, they are responsible if they don't give a standard on how these doctors should be trained. So if they don't talk about this and make changes, they should be responsible for the death of these doctors. They should be responsible for the death of these doctors if they don't do something about this excessive workload on these doctors. They are supposed to be learning. They are not supposed to take the job of the whole doctors on seat. Secondly, the story of the recent doctor that died. He actually died, slumped and died in the church event. I thought he went to church and slump but died. Okay. But apart from his incident happened in the church, right? In the church, like inside the school and everything. But many incidents have happened in the facility where the house officers are giving treatment to patients and they slumped and died giving treatment, like treating somebody. And some of them has been lucky to slump and then become the patient. After a few minutes of becoming the doctor, they become the patient. You know, but also because one thing that amazed me so much, because I have asked questions and I'm like, okay, what if you guys get sick? What is there for you guys to, assess when you guys get sick as doctors in training here? And then one of my friend told me that they don't even get a health insurance. Okay, that one actually, I don't know how I felt about that one, because remember that these doctors are supposed to be training. Yeah, they're supposed to be trainees on the floor, right? On the facility, right? But then when they come in, these seated doctors, consultants, registrars, senior registrars, junior registrars, use these doctors as literally the staff doctors. They work them off like the staff doctors. They actually give them their jobs to do, and they pay you a penny from to compare with what they pay the senior registrars and the junior registrar and the consultants, of course. But then when I get sick as a house officer, when I get sick from the place I'm training, I pay for my own health bills. I don't know how right that is. That the house officers pay for their own medical bills, and they are like the frontliners of the medical facilities. They are posting facilities. They are the They are literally the front runners of the medical facility. Let me take an example. This is typically how it works in most of the postings these doctors go, these house officers take part in their in these teaching hospitals that they are sent to. Okay, what happens? Let's say that a patient comes in with an illness. Who goes first to assess this patient, take a note on this patient, take a note of everything that happens? The house officers, because they are always there 24 hours, 24/7. So they are the first to go take, okay, this person is just admitted, who the house officer has to go assess, take notes. And then when the house officers are done taking notes, they get to the junior registrar or the first staff, the junior staff doctors or the junior registrar. So when these doctors looked at, they assess the doctor's note, and then they go back to make some assessments, and then now the other labs, and then other labs, if you don't actually get what is happening, they do their own assessments, other labs, and then labs are sent out to the laboratory and everything. When the labs comes in, the junior registrar now cross-check with their notes and their labs. When the senior registrar get the lab, they make their own deduction of what happened. Maybe it's on this stage that they get to know that maybe this is a new variant that the lab scientists have said that this is a new variant. They don't know what it is. For now, they can't decode what variant it is. So now there's maybe the laboratory said, oh, this might be contagious. Okay, so the junior registrar taking it to the senior registrar now has a base that this is new to us, this is new to the facility, this is new to our lab, this can be contagious. So now when the senior registrar is going to meet this patient, that remember that the house officer have met this patient, let me say like 8 hours ago, and then unprotected by any means, unprotected, like no PPE, no personal protective equipment. No PPE and nothing, just like an admitted patient, unprotected, have been with this patient for like 8 hours. Let me just give an estimate of 8 hours. The junior registrar has been with this patient like, let me say, 2 hours, unprotected, right? Now the senior registrar is coming in, girdled up on the whole protective garments, PPE to the list of it. Because now the lab is saying we don't understand this. So obviously it might be contagious. So now the senior registrar is coming in protected. So after 8 hours of the house officer being unprotected with this office, with this patient, even before it gets to the consultant, almost all the facility in the hospital is now should be mostly aware that we have a case of, we don't know what it is, but everybody, it might be contagious, so everybody should be careful. By that time, maybe the patient has been quarantined. And who is the one to who is most at risk of contamination if actually this variant or this illness is contagious? Who is that? Who saw the patient first? Okay, the house officer. Who doesn't have insurance, house insurance? The same house officer. So by all means, if the house officer could, by unlock on anything, get this variant, be contaminated with anything the patient has been admitted with, he still has to pay for his medical bills. And this is the laws that MDCN is sending these doctors out on. I think this is very unfair because MDCN knows very sure that these doctors are like front runners of these facilities that they send them to. These doctors literally use them for everything, use them as a shield, to anything coming in to that facility. As far as there is a house officer, they are literally like slaves at work in their facilities. So that's the same people you send out without even giving, taking care of their a percentage of their health bills. Why should any doctor work, whether training or whether not training, work without a health insurance? It's very disheartening to know that all these doctors making rule, all this council, because Medical and Dental Association Council of Nigeria, they have board members that run things there. Most of these board members are doctors that have practiced far and wide. They've practiced in UK, they've practiced in London, they've practiced in America, they've practiced in China, they've practiced in Hong Kong. Their certification has no band. Most of them are literally licensed to practice in a lot of countries, name it. But then they are actually still the one. Like, it's so disheartening how we go out and we go out to other people's country, and when we're coming into our country, we don't bring back knowledge that we've learned from them. We just come in empty headed into our own community. Because you go out to be enlightened, so that when you come in, you become a light for your own people. So these doctors go out and see that house officers, intern doctors, they have insurance. They have insurance. They are medically insured in case anything happens to you. Because everybody can be a casualty when it comes to medical field. Everybody can be a casualty. But if by any means you are, we are going to try our best with you, and we make sure that you're insured enough. We give you insurance, medical insurance, so that we don't use you and still leave you high and dry, because that's what the MDCN is doing to these young doctors. Because let's also use this doctor that just passed as an example. What if he knows that he's sick? He's been doing a 48-hour call every other 2 days, and then he got sick. And then let's assume that he got sick. Everybody knows that Lagos State has a high standard of living. In Nigeria, Lagos and Abuja, it's everything there is highly pricey. So is the medical facilities too. So let's say that these doctors is paid. These doctors, I know they said they are paid 160,000 every month. Let's say Lagos make their own 200 because everything is already costly there. So this doctor is paid 200, and this doctor doesn't have a health insurance. Not even like a percentage of his health insurance can be paid by the doctor. I'm not saying that you guys should give them everything, but now he doesn't have a health insurance to cover him if he gets sick. Okay, so you pay me 200. Okay, they say that house officers have a house officers lounge where they stay, right? Okay, and then I have to feed. Lagos is so pricey. He has to feed on the 200k, and then when he gets sick, he has to treat himself under the same 200k. What if he didn't go to hospital that day that he went to church because he couldn't really afford going to hospital that day? What if? Because most of these doctors would say, oh, what if he's sick, he would have gone to the hospital. Gone to the hospital. I wouldn't. You don't go to the hospital to owe the hospital. You have to have the money to go to the hospital, right? And everybody knows the condition of Nigeria. Even though they are early doctors, families are calling, send me something. Everybody's suffering in Nigeria. That's right. So that 200k is not even enough for feeding. Not talk of now having to pay medical bills from the 200,000 and being paid a month. And I'm not saying that the hospital should cover their whole bills, but at least 70% of every house officer's health bills should be covered by the hospitals that they are working in. I think this is supposed to be literally a law by MDCN for every hospital that we send out house officers. You guys are entitled to cover 70% of their medical bills. Don't even take 100, just make it 70%. It wouldn't be bad. Because I have a friend and he's only paid 160 per month. And then he got sick and I was telling him, oh, you need to go to hospital. Why don't you go to hospital? Just go to hospital. And he's like, if he goes to hospital, it's just better to go and buy medications and just drink instead of going there to waste money. I'm like, your life is better than that. Just go to hospital and make sure that you're okay. And then he went to hospital. The same, and the worst is that he went to the same hospital that he's a staff in, he's a house officer in. He went there for treatment, and after everything, he has to pay roughly 50,000 from the 160 you paid me a month. I have to pay 60,000 because I don't get any medical allowance. I don't get any medical coverage, and I'm working for you guys. How in the name of God is that normal? How in the name of God is that normal that the front our front runners don't have a medical insurance? It's not supposed to. So MDCN, you guys are responsible for the death of all this, for the death of this doctor. You guys are surely responsible for it, because you wouldn't say, oh, what if he's sick? Because you guys know that the workload on these doctors is literally unheard of. And then the medical aspect of it is even wholly appalling that you guys send doctors out to work in medical facilities. They are not paid enough, and still their medical expenses, they're not even insured. Just a percentage insurance. Not, you don't have to cover 100% of them. And you people should cover 100% of it. But okay, you don't have to cover 100, but 70% is good. Do something to ensure that when these doctors are sick, that they are being taken care of. That when these doctors that you send out are learning, they are actually learning and not being burnt to death. So if you guys are not checking all this, you guys stand to be responsible for every death of any doctor on your care. There's nothing, it shouldn't be normal that a doctor slumps and die. There's nothing normal about it. Everybody in Nigeria is taking it like, oh, nobody, it doesn't even make headlines anymore. If MDCN thinks it's normal, has made it acceptable to the public that doctors should die, young doctors should be ate alive, should literally die, they should take accountability for it. They should be very responsible for the death of these doctors. These doctors, let's try to reject the mentality of that's how it's supposed to be. No, because you're making yourself a ticking bomb waiting to explode on the next generation of your house officers. And then try to speak out for yourself. Speaking out for yourself doesn't mean challenging your superiors. It means trying to make a change from the place you can. How do you make that changes? When you don't feel all right, speak up for yourself. And I know that it's hard for guys. It's hard for, male doctors to actually speak out on it, because it's like everybody's expecting you automatically to be strong, to be the strong one, and don't complain, just accept everything. But that is actually the same reason why most of the time house officers that die are just men. It's been long I heard that a female house officer died. So I think there should be a change on that regards. If you are not, if your body is not feeling it, say something. Speak up for yourself, because obviously your seniors, doctors, consultants, they're not even there every day to know that you've been worked off. So there's no way to speak out for you if you don't speak out for yourself. The change starts with you. So thank you guys for watching. For those that watched, I hope you watch the end and you give a thumbs up and you share this post. I hope it gets to somebody that can activate a change for these young doctors and make our country, Nigeria, a better place, especially the health sector in Nigeria. Make it a better place for both our doctors and the patients. So this is the end of our discussion. I hope that this discussion, that some people sees reason with it. I stand to be corrected. In all this, I stand to be corrected. I I just want to be enlightened. If there is something MDCN is doing, yeah, let's hear about it on the comment section. I want to be enlightened to know where the problem is coming from. Till then, I'm grateful that you watched to this end, and I would love your comments. I would love your enlightenment. If I'm not so much enlightened, the comment section is open. Comments. Let's know what you think and what is actually happening. Till next time, this is Couch Talk with Stephanie, and I'm going to play you a video of Dr. And I pray his soul rest in peace and that his family be consoled. It's actually the worst thing that can happen to any family is to lose your shining star. I can actually say I know what it feels, but I know it wouldn't be the best feeling. It wouldn't be the best feeling. So my prayers goes to the family. I pray you guys be consoled. Till next time, subscribe, like, subscribe.